Let's do it. Hi guys, welcome to the next episode of the Strong Dad Army podcast. This week, my guest is a former contestant from the show SAS Who Dares Wins. He is also one of the founding members and directors of the charity strongmen.org.uk. This week's guest is Efrem Brynin. Welcome on, Efrem.
Hello, Dan. Yeah, thanks ever so much for having us on. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, mate. My pleasure. And thanks for agreeing to come and have a chat, mate. I really appreciate it. So just before we go, I've been asking everybody this. So how's lockdown and everything treating you and your family? Are you all healthy? You all safe?
Yeah, do you know, it's not been, I'm probably one of the people it's affected the least because I stopped working in July last year to concentrate, to take a bit of a break from work and to really concentrate on getting the charity in place, really upping the ante a bit and trying to really concentrate on doing that. So since the 1st of July last year, I've been working from home, predominantly working on, the governance and all the other bits and bobs that go on behind the scenes of the charity and trying to network with people and get awareness out there. So I hadn't been working. I'd predominantly been based at home. And it's not really changed that much for me. I mean, obviously, there's the social element has been difficult to get used to, but we're human beings. We adapt pretty quickly. I mean, the hardest thing probably for us is our daughter moved out. We're based in West Sussex, moved to Essex. It would probably be about a month before the lockdown really kicked in. Also, we've not seen her for 7 or 8 weeks. So that's the hardest part. But with technology, you can have a good go at it and you can sit there and talk to them and FaceTime and all the other bits and bobs. So, it's been all right, actually. I mean, let's be honest, it could have been a lot worse. We're all healthy, touch wood. So, just get used to it.
Good, glad to hear it. So, as I mentioned, in the intro at the beginning there, you obviously took part in the SAS Who Dares Wins. So if it's all right with you, I'd love to talk about that for a few minutes, if that's okay. So, you were on the show in 2016, yeah?
Correct. Yes.
And where was it your show took part? What part of the world? Because I know obviously they're always in different sort of, terrains, if you like, and things like that. Yeah, climates.
Yeah, I was part of the second series, and that's the first series was based in Wales in the UK, and the second one was based in Ecuador in South America. So we flew out there. Yeah. So we flew out there actually on May the 1st because it was my birthday, 2016, to shoot the series. I mean, in the build-up to that, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. I mean, obviously, you have to apply for it, and it's like a job application form. Like many of these things are, so you just fill it in, and the sort of cheesy questions, why do you consider yourself, blah, blah, blah. So you fill it in. You then progress, or I did, to the next round, which is a physical test. So I had to go up to somewhere near Clapham Common. It was an army TA centre, if I remember rightly. And there's a whole group of us, and you had your time slot, so you had to turn up. It was a mixture of some press-ups, some sit-ups, some farmers' walks, all sorts of other bits and bobs. But probably the most challenging part of it was a bleep test that we had to do. I can't remember the standard, but it was the equivalent of doing a sort of a mile and a half in about 9.5 minutes. So it was pretty tough, and a lot of your traditional big guys really struggled with that side of things. I mean, the series I did was before they'd introduced females, so it was male only. And I think there was around about 2,500-3,000 people applied for that series. So obviously now it's become much more popular, much more well known. I'm sure that's increased exponentially, and especially with the addition of the celebrity side of things, that obviously increases the interest with the general population to watch it. So we flew out there in 2016, a group of 25 of us. Turned up at Heathrow Airport, flew to Madrid, from Madrid to Quito, and then from Quito out to this sort of remote army base where we had a day to acclimatise, really, which is nowhere near enough. Obviously, everyone had jet lag. We're all a little bit anxious and nervous. The heat and the humidity is indescribable because obviously you're in the rainforest. I think it's between 95 and 98% humidity. It was about 35 degrees. And April, May in the UK, excluding this year, are generally 15 degrees on a good day. So it was a real shock to the system. you know, you got all the other stuff. When you go on holiday, it takes you a few days just to get used to the diet, to the water, to the food, so all of that is really thrown together very, very quickly. Added to that, you've got a load of different people that you're meeting for the first time. Mm-hmm. And you know that over the next few days, obviously, things are going to get, you're going into the unknown, really.
Absolutely.
We had, one of the funniest things was we had our health and safety briefing in this hut. And the guy gave us the briefing, you know, in terms of the snakes, the spiders. If you tread on a log, you know, usually a snake will hide in the shade just behind a log. So don't just tread on the log and then over it, rather than just drop your foot the other side. And all the way through his health and safety brief, there's a tarantula sat on the wall just behind him, just sat there, didn't move. And he basically said to us, "You don't bother them, they'll leave you alone." And that was the mantra of it. So, but obviously when you get into that environment, and as we did, you're running around, you are disturbing them because it's their natural environment where they're sleeping, and all of a sudden you've got 25 people scrabbling around, running up and down hills, and so it's difficult. I mean, someone got bitten by a spider on the backside in the very first thing we did, and had an anaphylactic shock and had to be removed straight away. Wow. All these things you sort of don't see behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And everything out there kind of wants to hurt you. So even when we had to run up banks and come back down, I grabbed a tree to stabilise myself as I came down this bank. And it had spikes that must have been, I don't know, 2-3 inches long, just sticking on it, which then stick in your hand. So you pull them out, but then all the little cuts and gashes you've got, as soon as you go in the water, they get infected.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I couldn't tie my shoelaces up, I couldn't do my trousers up because my thumbs would all become infected. So all of this stuff that you don't see is really what grinds people down. And even when you see it now in the one they've just recently had in Scotland, it's all that stuff chipping away that becomes difficult. And of course, with any of these things, it's the unknown that gets you. You know, if you go to a circuit class, a CrossFit class, or even run a race, you know that the end is in, be it a 5K, a 10K, a marathon, you know where the end is. But with this, you don't know where the end is. It could be 30 seconds, it could be 3 hours. And that's what I think unsettles most people, because you just don't know. You know, whenever you're doing exercise, you can always think, I'm halfway, I'm 75, I've just got another couple of minutes, but you don't know. So how can you pace yourself? So, I mean, it was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed it. Got to meet some great people, the DS, the staff on it, some of the production team behind the scenes, the psychologists, the doctors. It was a great experience. It seems like a lifetime ago now because the show's changed greatly since I was on it. It's become a lot more popular, but fundamentally it's still based around the same sort of ethos. And yeah, it was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome, good. Sounds good. I've considered applying for it before, but I've never really gone through with it. I don't know why, but you know, maybe I should.
Well, you should do. Yeah, I mean, it's like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, one of the guys I interviewed for the podcast, he was episode 2, a guy called Paul. He's just applied for the series that we're recruiting for now. So I might do well this time. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you did that. There was a big story of yours in the show with a particular, you know, thing you'd gone through in your life, which, you know, the DS as they call them. You spoke to them about that, and I was wondering if you'd be okay to tell us that story in case people hadn't heard that story or didn't see the show.
Yeah. I mean, we one of the reasons I'll rewind a little bit. So
absolutely, yeah, anytime.
Of October 2013, unfortunately, our son was killed in Afghanistan. It was his second tour of duty. He was out there as part of the Brigade Reconnaissance Force. And in a handover operation between the previous Herrick and incoming Herrick, which he was part of, Herrick 19, they were basically attacked, became woefully overrun and exposed. And during the withdrawal, James unfortunately got shot and killed. So on the 15th of October, our lives just changed forever, and they'll never go back to that old way of life. So in the period directly afterwards, we had, with the military death, you've obviously got lots of things that go on. James was in Afghan, so he had to be repatriated. We then had a military funeral. Then you've got remembrance and all the other things that go on after that. I mean, it's always a difficult period for us, really, from the end of September, which is my daughter's 21st birthday. James was away then, and all the way to Christmas, because James's birthday is on the 22nd of December. So that whole period from end of September to end of December is a difficult period, because it's got all of these anniversary dates that fit into it, and they're difficult to deal with, and they don't get any easier, but they do seem to pass. You do find yourself retrospectively looking back. I mean, James was 22 when he died. This December he would have been 30, so it's quite a milestone. We were hoping to go away on a really nice holiday, but I'm not sure if that's going to be possible now with all the changes in the world with travel and bits and bobs. So one of the reasons I still don't know why I applied to go on the show, because it's not my sort of thing. I'm not really one for putting myself, that seems crazy now talking to you on a camera, but putting myself in front of the camera, doing all these, drawing attention to yourself is probably the best way of putting it, especially with something, such a personal story as that. So I just applied for it. I didn't think I would get, but I kept going through all the different loopholes, the physical test and the psychological test and the interviews on cameras, and then all the various bits and bobs where Channel 4 get involved and they have to sign off on the people that go out there. So all of those things happened, and I kind of felt one of the reasons I went out there was to try and have an understanding, really, of some of the things that James may have experienced, in terms of that sort of feeling you get when you don't really know what's going on, when you're in a strange place with a group of people that you've never really met before or you don't know very well. That's one of the things that we've tried to take across the Strongmen, is to try and get that sort of bond and brotherhood that you form really quickly with a group when you're in a difficult situation or circumstance. So I think that was one of the reasons. One of the other reasons was I'd watched the first series, which was filmed in Wales, very close to where James was based. He was based in Brawdy, on the southwest end of Wales, with 14 Signal Regiment down there. So when we went down there, because when his colleagues all came back, we went down there as part of their homecoming, really, which was the hardest things we ever had to deal with. It's difficult to see all these families that are really happy to see their loved ones back, and of course you're sort of standing there with the opposite. So that was one of the hardest things we ever had to deal with. But while we took the opportunity to look around, because it's a beautiful part of the UK, a lot of the areas where they'd filmed the first series were areas that we'd been to shortly beforehand, with when we were down there for James. So there was something in there that just sort of hooked me into it, and the way it was, and the sort of dark side of it, it really interested me. So there was definitely a reason for me to apply, was somewhere in there. And if James was still around, I definitely wouldn't have applied for it, because I'd have had personally no need to, and it would have been embarrassing for him as well. So I wouldn't have done if he was still here. But when I look back at it retrospectively now, years later, you can kind of try to work. Sometimes things just happen for whatever reason, and you don't really know what it is at the time. I had some health issues while I was in the jungle. The doctor out there Sunday referred me to my GP when I got home. Said, look, it could be one of many things. They had very basic kit out there to test. So it tested me for a urine infection, and that was fine. But when I got back, eventually, with some fairly invasive tests, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Mm-hmm. Now, I wouldn't have ever found that if I hadn't have done the TV thing, because I would never have had the healthcare issues, because I would have never been in that extreme environment, in extreme exercise, if you like. So those things would never have happened. I would have never have been referred, and the doctors even then didn't take me seriously. It's only that I had this letter from Sundeep as a fellow doctor that said, we think you should test for this, this, and this. They did do, and they eventually found it. So something made me do that. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's any truth in that, or if I'm just being bonkers. But that's, if I hadn't have done it, I probably wouldn't be here now. So it definitely saved my life. So, I like to think that was a bit of a guide to do that for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Good effort, some people as well, eh?
yeah, it is. Yeah. When I think I would never have picked it up. I really wouldn't. I'm not the right age to have prostate cancer and kind of any history in the family. There would be no reason to think that I'd have it. It's just that those things came up, and they eventually led to the diagnosis, and then I had my prostate removed. I think will be coming up to 4 years this September. So touch wood, I'm in remission for it and everything's fine.
Excellent.
But say I owe that program an awful lot for that, really, if nothing else.
Sometimes things happen for a reason, don't they?
Yeah.
Cool. So, moving on from there, then obviously with what the story you just told us about your son, and of course your own sort of health journey, if you like. This eventually led you to set up the charity, which for those who are actually watching on the YouTube video, your Strongmen t-shirt. I need to get me one of them.
Yeah.
Definitely going to get one of them. But yeah, so I'm not going to tell people about it because obviously this is your thing. I'd love you to tell us all about it. What, and literally from the beginning, where did the idea come from? How did it start? And just go from there if you could, please, pal.
Yeah, so I did the second series of SAS Who Dares Wins. Dan Cross, my colleague and co-founder of Strongmen, did the third series. Dan's wife, unfortunately, was murdered. As part of his recovery, similar to mine, he used a lot of exercise just to get that routine, get him out of the house, get him feeling a little bit better. I've always kept myself pretty fit. I've always enjoyed exercising, whether that be running, gym work, circuits, anything like that. I really enjoy it, and I like the routine. I'm very structured in the way. If I say at 10 o'clock I'm doing it at 10 o'clock, and if it's 10:15 and I've not done it, I get a little bit moody about it. So
exactly
I've always,
the same.
yeah. So I've always done that, and I've always used that now than ever, really, since we lost James, because it's just important for me, because it keeps everything kind of in the zone for me. Mentally, it keeps me happy and sharp. Physically, obviously, it helps.
Yeah.
And Dan was the same. Dan had used running in particular with friends as a recovery method for him. Both of us had experienced in our relative experiences on the SAS program, had experienced that bond, as I said earlier, and how quickly a group of strangers can bond together, form really strong friendships like you get in the forces. Really take on anything with the right sort of dynamic and teamwork, and with all those different ages and experiences and everything that different people bring to the party. So we wanted to try and recapture that. Ollie Ollerton, one of the DS on the program, sort of put us together and said, I think, whilst it was Dan's original concept to help people because he wanted to, it was Ollie that said, well, I think it's something that Efrem would probably be interested in. I hadn't, to be honest, really thought about that. I was still trying to I was still just going through the process a little bit of the recovery from losing James and obviously the cancer and all the other bits and bobs. But when Dan and I spoke, we had a real synergy. We get on really well. We're great mates, and we want the same thing. We want to help people, but we want to do it in a non-traditional way, sort of not through not through therapy necessarily, not through going to the doctors, but trying to use exercise, trying to help people to get refocused on aspects of their lives that make them happy, and trying to cut some of the stuff that doesn't make them happy out of it. Look at things like nutrition, routine, all of these things that we used to put them together. So over time, we started off with this concept, and it was sort of off in left field, and we moved around, and eventually we put it out there. We formed Strongmen as a CIC, a community interest company, on the 1st of May 2018. We got a grant from the National Lottery, the All Award Scheme, £10,000, which helped us get websites, laptops, start working on the first weekend calls. Because what we wanted to do is bring a group of bereaved guys who'd suffered the loss of someone close to them, bring them together in a nice outdoor location, something like Snowdon or the Lake District or somewhere like that. Bring them all together, do some exercise, climb the mountain, get them into a safe environment where they can talk with other people who've experienced similar things to them. Because until you do, you don't really understand it. I think sometimes it can be frustrating when you've been through the process, as I have, and people use those old things like, time will heal you. I know how you, all of these things that really don't help, and you find yourself just shutting your ears and going, yeah. But with a group of people who understand, then there's just a connection there instinctively. Dan had that same thing with victim support that he worked with, and I worked with SAFA, the military charity. The thing I took away from that is when you get in a group with people who've been in the same situation, you just have a bond. You have an unspoken bond, and you instantly have a trust and a respect, and no one's really trying to prove anything or You don't feel like the odd one out or anything like that. So it's just a great leveler for all of us. So we wanted to try and put all of these ingredients into the pot and come out with a product, if you like, that we could take to people to help them feel better about it. So we ran our first camp April 2019. We had about 20 guys along. We ran the second one in October 2019. In between those two, we'd transitioned to a full registered charity. So we're now a fully registered charity with a Charities Commission, because we just wanted to be more transparent. We wanted companies and corporates to have trust in us and to be able to donate and support us and sponsor us, etc. So Dan and I felt that's the best way to go forwards. So we transitioned into a full charity. So in October, we ran the second course, and there's about 25 guys came along to that.
Brilliant.
Everyone's had a great experience that we've had along. It's been life-changing for all of them, some to lesser degrees, some to greater degrees. Everyone's got that community feel together. We keep the guys together in groups as well, WhatsApp groups, so everyone can communicate, if they, how much or as little as they like. Some communicate a lot, some not so much. And difficult dates and anniversary, it just gives them the opportunity to come back to this group where they know people understand what they're going through, and just to help, just to keep everybody on the right sort of track. So that's what we've tried to do. Strongmen has been really well. The awareness has been fantastic. We're lucky there with someone like Ollie on board as an ambassador who has that profile to be able to interest people to come in, and it's led us to all sorts of different things. We travel around and we talk to different companies. We go to universities, as you know. We go to companies. We go to sports clubs. We go all over the place and talk about our experiences in terms of our stories, if that's the right word, what we're doing to help heal us and to help heal others. Because every time we do it, Dan and I, it's cathartic for us because we feel like we're helping people. Yeah. And when they see what we've managed to achieve and how we've kept ourselves going in the most extreme of circumstances, because it doesn't really get more extreme than both Dan and I's situation, losing a child, losing your wife in such terrible situations. And people can see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. However long that tunnel is and however small that light is, it is there. I think it helps give them confidence and, it keeps everybody on the right sort of path. So we want to keep growing it. We want to keep developing it. We had some events planned for this year, which we've had to postpone at the moment, unfortunately. We had 4 planned for this year, the first being in April, second would have been in June, then July, and then October. At the moment, we're hoping just to run the October one, but we'll see where we go. But we've got everyone, I think we've got 25, 30 guys coming in April, which will now be October. We've got another 100 who have filled in the questionnaires for the next, what would have been the rest of the years. Wow. We've then got over 850 people on the waiting list, on the long list. So
wow, that's
nearly 1,000 people. What's mind-boggling, it's nearly 1,000 people. And, we're a new charity. We're not even a year old as a charity. No one really knows about us, but to see how much requirement there is, it's fantastic, but it's also a little bit scary. We need to really increase our funding so we can get staff on board to help us, because Dan and I do it on a volunteer basis. Everybody that works for us does it free of charge. Yeah. My wife's a nurse, so she does all the medical side of things. Dan's wife's a mental health therapist, whatever the right word is. She's a mental health nurse, sorry. So she does all of that side of things for us. So everybody else does it free of charge, which you can only do for so long. And it means you can only get little bits of people's time. So we need to be able to employ people, to pay people, to get premises. But, small acorns and all of that, that's where we are. But it's a really exciting project to be part of, because it genuinely changes and save lives. I can say that with 100% certainty.
I can imagine it does, yeah. That having nearly 1,000 people waiting is, or by the time if you get through all those people, like you say, 1,000 people will have gone through already. That's unreal. That's really good. Fair play to you guys. It's massive effort, that. But like you say, with it being relatively new as well, it shows you how big it could potentially go, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's be honest, with everything that's happened in the world this last couple of months, we've got, 32,000 people have died in the last month or so, unexpectedly or early.
Absolutely.
And every single one of them has got a family, and every single one of them has got people that care for them. And then there's the emergency staff that have dealt with it. So that pool is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger really, really quickly. So in the months and years to come, I think we'll see a real problem on that side of things, mentally and emotionally, what's happened to people, and the circumstances in how the people have died, and the fact that people haven't been able to necessarily say goodbye to them, or they've had to do these sort of really ad hoc funerals. And every day you hear the number, and it's almost, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything now, but it's 500, 600. You have to stop and think, hang on a minute, that's each one of those is a life. It's not a number.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's becoming a little bit obsessed with this change to the rules, but you still got to fundamentally remember that it's people's lives that we're talking about here.
And I think a way I always think about that is, with exactly like you say, it's not just being a number, is that like, even if, they say it's, quote unquote, just 200 and something, because the numbers have come right down. And you think, well, if that, let's say 250 people were to try and all cram into your living room or your kitchen where you are right now, you realize how many people that is. Just little things like that's the way I think of things sometimes, is that, even if it's 3 or 4, you get those 3 or 4 people trying to sit in your bathroom with you, you know what I mean? And you realize
that's massive numbers. It's massive numbers.
And how many, like you said, the ripple effect that it has, of course, as well.
Yeah, it does. It has a huge effect. It's had a huge effect on my family, just losing James and his friends. And you think, I can't remember the exact figure of how many service people were lost in Afghanistan, but it was around about 500, I think.
Right.
That's been surpassed every day with this disease, every single day. And I know the impact it's had on me. And I know that the cancer that I suffered was as a result of stress. I'm completely convinced about it, because there can be no other explanation. So the stress that it puts on people as they go through this, and as we come out of the worst or come through the peak, this loss is still there. And how long will it last? It could last years and years and years. It's staggering. And at the moment, there doesn't look to be an easy way through this, let alone what's then going to happen afterwards as a result of when we get to deal with the emotional and the mental side of things. So I think it's pretty bloody terrifying. So, but you've got to do what you can do. We've all got to do what we can do, whether that's with Dan and myself in Strongmen, or just as human beings, to try and be a little bit kinder and less, just don't be so much of an arsehole. That sort of thing. It's what a lot of people said to me, well, I'm really hoping that we come out of this and everyone's a little bit kinder. And I always use that thing about the speeding awareness course. You go to a speeding awareness course, you realise that driving at 35 miles an hour is dangerous in a 30 seconds, so we all drive at 30 miles an hour for about 2 days. And then as soon as you go back to normal, everyone's off again. And that's what I'm hoping isn't the case here. And people, think back and remember, and all the fun things. We've had to really adapt. Like I say, with talking to our daughter, and it's been my wife, my birthdays, all of this we've done on our own. But you adapt, you work a way around it. And that's what we've got to do with everything that goes forward here. But hopefully people will be, a little bit more receptive to bereavement in particular, and the effects that it has on people. Because I think everybody seems to know someone who's, if they've not died from it, they've had it, they've been ill, or someone knows of someone. And that's pretty scary, really. And that number is only going to keep increasing.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. With the situation, as I like to call it, as we're all going through to various degrees at the moment. The Strongmen charity, have you managed to continue to do anything at all during this? Whether it be, because I do, a bit of online coaching and stuff like fitness coaching, things like that. So I've managed to keep some clients taking over by doing, like we're doing now, a Zoom call, like a live PT session, if you like. Have you guys managed to sort of pivot your charity and do any work in that sense, or has it just been, it's all had to sort of shut down operations, so to speak?
Well, we have, we've done various things. So we run the Zoom meetings that we have with the beneficiaries that have been through the system so far. We've managed to do that every fortnight. We've got the groups together to interact with each other. We had a good a virtual meeting, if that's the right word, with Leeds Rhinos. Dom Crosby from Leeds is one of our ambassadors. Dom's a fantastic guy. So we spoke to them about mental health, resilience, again, our stories and what we're doing with Strongmen. So we did that through Zoom. We've got some online sort of basic workout things for people as well to follow, because I'm a firm believer in providing stuff for people, and it's so much more fun if you're doing something slightly different to what you would usually do. I mean, there's nothing worse than going to the gym and seeing a bloke sat there on his phone for about 10 minutes and then doing 2 reps in between, because there's just no motivation there. So to have something different is what it's all about. Well, and it doesn't matter. As long as it's something different and exciting. I mean, I really enjoy exercise, as I said earlier, and that routine for me is really important. So every day I do something, usually between 10 and 11. I often do it with my daughter, so we do it, virtually. So I'll give her a little program. We do it together, which we did today. We did a little partner on today with them, which was great. It was just fun. And you can make exercise such fun nowadays. Just by doing silly little things, skipping or something, that we haven't done for ages. So we've put some workout plans online. We've got the Zoom meetings that we do with our beneficiaries. We've got another one in a week Thursday. We've done various things through it, but it is difficult, as you know, through your own business. It's difficult because you just don't get the same feel as you would do. And with Strongmen about it, sometimes it's difficult to put that across on a screen like this. There's no substitute for the real thing, and telling our stories and seeing the impact that it makes and speaking to people like that. And of course, everyone's got their own priorities at the moment. So we're doing what we can. We're trying to keep everything out there. Our social media is pretty regular. It keeps people updated with what we're up to. We're trying to get people to fundraise for us in unconventional ways, which everybody has to at the moment. We're just trying to keep the name out there, the awareness out there, and keep talking to as many people as we can do. And that's all really we can do. And hopefully, as things change, as the months go through towards the end of the year, we'll be able to run at least one of our camps in October. We were supposed to have a black tie in April, which we postponed to September. We've now decided to postpone that to next year now, because that event needs to be brilliant. So don't want anybody. Yeah, I mean, you don't want people turning up being nervous or being reluctant to come along. And I think that would be the problem at the moment. So I think we have to take, decisive. We have to, show a decisive side of things and just take a step backwards to take a step forwards, really. We had a real big year planned for 2020. It looks like it's just going to pause to 2021, but we'll be back and we'll just continue doing what we can. But it's still, it's still really important to us to keep everything going and everyone aware of us, because people are spending a lot of time on social media at the moment. So that's really our main avenue of trying to keep everyone, focused on what we're doing.
Perfect strategy, it sounds like.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, like you say, time will tell, won't it? And I think, there will be a lot of people, probably more, come the end of this crazy time we're in at the moment, if you like, that will need you guys and what you have to offer. So before we come to the end, Efrem, obviously there was supposed to be 2 you guys. Dan was supposed to be joining us, but unfortunately he couldn't make it tonight. And I was hoping to get 2 embarrassing stories or funny stories, because we always like to finish on one of these. So if you've got an embarrassing or, funny story where you maybe made a bit of a prat of yourself, the floor is yours, mate. Let us know what you've been up to.
Well, most of mine aren't really repeatable because I do some really stupid stuff. But I'm going to go back a few years to Le Mans in 2003 and 2004. I took James with us, so he would have been 13, 14 years old, because we both had a great love of cars, that sort of side of things. So I went with a load of my mates, brought James along. He was the only youngster that came with us. So we all camped, found these derelict old cow sheds, and we set our tent up with everybody, and it was all beers and the usual sort of good fun sort of side of things. Worst things about them, in fact, the only bad thing about them, but it is really bad, is the situations with regard to the toilets and the facilities, because it's like Glastonbury. It's predominantly blokes who predominantly have a diet of beer and red meat on the barbecue. So I said to James, look, this is going to be difficult on the ferry. Make sure you go, and we'll try and work a system out, because at that age, what it's like as a teenager. It's all a bit difficult.
Yeah.
So anyway, every morning I used to go across with my mate Lance, and with paper under the arm, queue up outside, and it's a horrific experience. It's basically, it was just a hole in the floor, and you queue up and the door opens and in you go. Anyway, he refused to go to the toilet for about 3 days. So we'd gone for usual, as we did. We worked out a bit of a scam. We used the ladies' toilets, which were much better, and there was less of. So we'd been for our usual morning freshen up. We were walking back towards the campsite, just as this little tornado, which was James, ran past us at about 1,000,000 miles an hour, toilet roll under his arm, and we didn't see him for about an hour and a half, making sure that everything was done, needed to be done. And it was, I know it's a bit of an unsavoury one, but it was just one of those really funny experiences where you wasn't paying attention. A little tornado like the Roadrunner came past me with about 3 or 4 days worth, and that was him sorted.
Yeah, got to the point where he couldn't hold on any longer.
Yeah.
No, it's a good one, that, mate. I like it. Okay, mate. So we're pretty much at the end now. So thanks ever so much for joining me. I massively appreciate your time, and I think I'm hoping, obviously, the guys they're going to be tuning in to this episode when it gets released will pick something up out of it, or if they need you guys, we'll get in touch with you. So if you want to let everyone know, where they can contact you on social media, or whether it's via email or whatever, please, pal, if you could.
Yeah, well, the website is strongmen.org.uk. If you want to register to come on one of our future camps, there's a little tab on the home screen where you can register, fill in the questionnaire there if you want to come along. Please follow us on all the usual platforms. It's generally at strongmen.org.uk, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. And just, if anyone can just help and spread the awareness, if they know of people that they think may benefit from it. People, what we do doesn't suit everybody. Some people are quite happy to go down the therapy side of things or go to the doctors, but someone that's looking for something a little bit more holistic, who has that, interest in the physical side of things, or just trying something a little bit different, or maybe to run it in conjunction with something else, then please contact us. We'll do, as I say, it's difficult at the moment because obviously we're all locked down, so that the weekends are not happening, but please be patient and bear with us. And if there's anybody out there who wants to help fund us, then fantastic. You can either contact us through the social media, or it's probably best to email us at hello@strongmen.org.uk, and then either Dan or myself or one of the other team will pick them up, pick the message up and come straight back to them.
Perfect. Right, mate. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Massively appreciate it. And hopefully you guys will pick up some more fundraising very, very soon.
Thank you.
Okay, mate. Thanks very much, Efrem. Take it easy.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, mate.
And I'll speak to you again soon.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.